In the exotic car business, and really in any business, we have some incredibly difficult clients. Now, the business adage from our grandparents was, the customer is always right. I don't agree with that, and I do not live by that, as evidenced by the fact that I have a wall of shame on my website that literally takes ridiculous things that customers have emailed me and puts it right up front and center. Essentially, it's a reverse review to make fun of them. Now, I don't call them out by name or anything like that because it doesn't matter. But it is funny to hear some of the interactions we get and some of the ridiculous questions that people ask us about cars that, we're expected to respond to professionally and kindly, even when they're just asinine. But it seems like when you get into the upper echelon of clients that those difficult clients get even more difficult because they become entitled. They have achieved a certain level of success that I think in some senses grants them they start assuming that they have a right or they have earned the right to be unkind to people and that they deserve some sort of special level of treatment. And yes, in some senses, success and money does give you power, right? Like if you buy a VIP pass to a concert and the other guy didn't, then you get special treatment. But it does not give you a right to be a jerk. But there are many people that operate from a worldview different from that their status has afforded them more importance than other people, and they have a right to look down on them. And I've certainly experienced that as a car dealer for the sometimes super wealthy, is that they look at me not as an equal in business, but as somebody who is just serving them. I'm the same as their janitor because I'm just their car guy. I'm making their life better. And I enjoy doing that for some people when they appreciate it, but not when it's, looked down upon. So there's one client in particular that just essentially used and abused his privilege. And it was on one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen. It was a Rosso Rubino 599, and it was actually the car whose color inspired my 911 Hot Rod Maroon 6 build. I used that paint color, Rosso Rubino, for the 911 because I thought it was just the most beautiful, rich, deep burgundy metallic I had ever seen. But I got this Rosso Rubino 599 with ceramic brakes and cream interior with burgundy dash and headliner. And I even had the yellow calipers changed out to Rosso Rubino so it matched the car, and it had the ball polished challenge wheels. And I was hoping that somebody else would appreciate that specification as I did and pay a little bit more than your standard red tan car. And I did find a customer in Cleveland that loved it, and we negotiated a price, and it was a cash price. And this was important to me because this was 2009. I was a little bit strapped, as were many car dealers, and I had opened a dealership in Las Vegas and had a lot of expenses and had probably leveraged myself a little bit too thin. So a cash deal for me was important because I could then go buy some other cars quickly. What started as a cash deal and negotiated as a cash deal then turned into, I like using other people's money. So we're going to make it a leasing deal. So you got to jump through all those hoops to get paid. I wasn't super happy about that because I'm expecting a wire transfer tomorrow based on the buyer's representation of how the deal would go. And that changed. But, I'm the client. You serve me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So we go through all the hoops to get funded. And then, the deal changes again. He's out of town, can't sign papers. You just got to wait for me. Couple more weeks goes by, and what was supposed to be an easy, quick deal has dragged out for nearly a month, and I have to go down and meet him at his yacht club in order to sign paperwork and get the deposit money from him. And it finally closed, but in the midst of this, I was talking with another car dealer and just venting to him about it, and he said something interesting. He goes, "Well, you win." I said, "How do I win? This was the worst deal ever." He goes, "Well, you took his money." I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Sometimes the difficult clients are the most satisfying because they're difficult for everybody and nobody wants their business and they don't like giving their money away. Like they're so tight with their money that when you finally get a deal done, you win because you got the difficult client's money and nobody else can." And I thought, okay, that's certainly a good perspective on it. I don't want to cater to those types of clients, and I certainly don't want a long-term relationship. But yeah, okay, fine. I win. I got a deal done with him. But the issue with those guys is there's no loyalty, there's no relationship. They don't actually value what you do because, again, they see themselves as the center of the world. They'll call you, text you at 10 p.m. and just, you got to jump through all these hoops in order to earn my business. And I'm not all about that. But my good friend and business associate, John Sabo, had an equally odd feeling about this guy. And he never quite could figure him out. But his one red flag about this guy was like, we go into his office and he always bragged about how much money he had. He couldn't just have stuff. He always had to talk about what his stuff was worth and what he had. But he went into his office and he has this giant tropical fish tank built into the wall of his office. And Sabo's like, well, there's no fish in it. Who has a fish tank with no fish in it? And he was like, that's just weird. Something's off about this guy because he doesn't have fish in his fish tank. And this guy was the type of guy, he actually made it onto the wall of shame because he would be on my email list for Cleveland car events. And he would often respond. And one of his best ones was essentially, well, I'm not going to come out on a sunny Saturday because I have a Sunseeker yacht and my Sunseeker yacht costs 15 times what my Ferrari costs. So on a good weather day, obviously I'm going to use that. I was like, great. Happy to know how much your yacht costs. Back to the whole leasing thing. So the reason he wanted to lease his Ferrari is because he wanted it as a tax write-off. Now, I am no CPA. I'm not here to give tax advice. But it seems sketchy that somebody could just write off a Ferrari as a legitimate business use because they're leasing it. I guess technically you can, but I'm like, you're not using it for business. You drive it to work at your office and you drive it home, and you drive it to work and you drive it home. Well, it turns out he also was using his Sunseeker for business. Because a number of years later, I Googled his name just out of curiosity, and an article came up that he had been indicted by the IRS for tax fraud, tax evasion. And it was actually related to his Sunseeker yacht that he had bragged about and how he had been essentially using it as a fake tax write-off, claiming that he had this yacht leasing company or whatever, but, had no revenue. It was just his personal yacht that he had docked at the Shoreby Club. He was ordered to pay $500,000 in fines and $1.3 million in restitution, in addition to 6 months in jail and 6 months on house arrest. I'm sure with enough money, he didn't actually spend any time in jail, but that is what the article said. But it gets better. So then I started looking through his other history and legal files. And I found out that in 2011, he bought a property, a lakefront property, very high-end expensive, that included an easement with red interlocking bricks. So there's this path by the lake in front of all of these houses in this development, and they have an easement for it. So he submitted an architectural plan to basically redo the part in front of his house and redo the landscaping that included replacing all the red interlocking bricks. And he then installed yellow interlocking bricks on the part of the easement in front of his house. The trustees of said easement, who are probably fed up with his shenanigans because he's the type of person that, it's just constant with him, they pulled up his yellow bricks without any notice. They just went in and ripped them all up. So he sued the trust. The court granted a summary judgment against Tom. Tom appealed, and included in his claims was, get this, all this is public record, quote, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Ladies and gentlemen, the justice system is broken. It's broken because of people like this. It's broken because of rich, entitled asshats who tie up the courts and the legal system with their complaints about emotional distress because they couldn't have yellow bricks in front of their house when they're required to have red bricks. So, yes, I took his money. I never got another dime of his money, but I did sell the beautiful Rosso Rubino 599. I didn't get the car back because I just stopped responding to his whiny texts, and so he probably found somebody else to bother with his time, and they eventually won and got the 599 from him at some point. But likely he doesn't have any long-standing relationship with any exotic car dealer, because at some point, like the trustees of the trust of the easement, we all get tired of his shenanigans.
Buying a used car, especially sight unseen, can be a very scary process, and you should never do that without getting the car inspected first. And the best and easiest way to have that done is using the Lemon Squad. They are an amazing resource that can almost immediately inspect a car for you anywhere in the country. They have no hidden fees, they're the largest company in the industry, and they have the fastest response times in the industry. So check them out now at the link in the description below. You can use the code VINwiki for a 10% discount, and they will literally go tomorrow and check out any car in the country that you are looking to buy. It is the best way not only to find out if you're being scammed, find out if the car is a piece of garbage, and to make sure that you're buying exactly the car that you're looking for. So next time you buy a car, make sure to use the Lemon Squad.